and welcome to this week's Sunday Night Live, the automotive show where we talk about all things automotive, variable ops, fixed ops, that has anything to do with the automobile business. We bring on the experts to share with us what they know and some of the stuff that they do, because the more we know about our business, the better we all are at it, and that promotes everybody. So I am very happy and honored to have with us today Anthony Montiero with Draiver. And Anthony is going to share with us some of the logistical problems that we face in the dealership, unintended. So without any further ado, thank you, Anthony, for being on the show. And why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. I've watched a few of your shows and super informative. Great guests and good content. So I think it's a valuable thing that you got going on here. So cool to be here. A little bit about myself. Quick, easy thing. Go to my LinkedIn page, Anthony Montiero. Got in the business in 1989 by accident, right? As everybody had gotten the car business, that wasn't by accident. Sold cars, became a manager, became a GSM, ended up starting a consulting company and really loved getting into more dealers where kind of my blinders came off. For 8 or 9 years, I was at the same dealership, and just, you really know just that world. And as you start to consult, you really see other ways and techniques and best practices as you go from a Lexus store to a Mercedes store and then back into a high volume Toyota store. It's really, two different worlds apart doing the same thing. From there, I started a little company with some guys, Payam, Zamani, and Frank started it, and I jumped in the third or fourth guy to autoweb.com. And for years, I oversaw that sales team, and we grew. Company went public, and it was just such a great fun time through 96 through the early 2000s of internet. It was new on the scene. Nobody even knew what it was. It was so new. We had to grab 100 foot of phone cable and carry it with us in these big, huge laptops to even be able to do a demo, because the only place you could plug the wire into was the fax machine in the F&I office, because there was no Wi-Fi. There was no internet in the dealership. Right. So, and you had to have your list of AOL dial-up numbers from wherever you were in the country so you could get that screeching noise. I won't try to make that noise. And then from there, I worked with John Draiver for a little while. I worked for ADP. Then I went to work for Sonic at the corporate office in Charlotte. And then my last gig before this was CDK now, but it was Elite CRM. I was the VP of product there for many years and oversaw a team of developers of about 200 developers and a lot of product managers. And then, I did some consulting, but at the same time, we were building Draiver and the logistics around vehicle movement, people movement, and package movement. And it was all a derivative of when I was at Elite. We built a digital retail product that we saw the end of the road come to a dead end, where you could put the car in the basket, you can add the accessories, you could apply for the financing, you could do all these things, but what you couldn't do is have that car show up on your driveway like the commercials that Carvana play every 9 seconds now. And for the average dealer, that wasn't possible. So, we sat down and says, hey, how do we make that possible? What's missing? And what was missing was the infrastructure, the logistics, the overall business of moving vehicles around at scale for different reasons, because dealers have moved them around forever from lot to lot, or dealer trades, but never really did the home delivery thing. A little bit of service P&D, but only the highline dealerships that could afford to do that. Everybody else wasn't doing, still aren't. Trying to. A remote test drive was really something nobody even heard about.
Was it? No, that's what it was. That was a remote test drive.
Yeah, well, maybe once in a while you'd get the person and you say, hey, take it home for the night. We called it the puppy dog close and let them drive it overnight. But it was very rare, and it was again, it was haphazard. It wasn't anything that we planned on doing. There was no process. We did half the time. I remember one time somebody did that and we forgot about it and we couldn't find the car because the guy was driving it around for a week. So, so these processes are now here, and our business has changed drastically. So that's just a quick, who's Anthony?
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of history right there, man. All right, let me say hi to some folks here that have tuned in. We got Ty Thompson. Says hi, Paul and Anthony. I was on their show the other night. That was a great show. So thank you, Ty. Tully Williams, it's all about the hours. And Steve Chesson. Hi, Steve. Ron Usher, my favorite master tech. John Frazier is in the house. And Joe Perez. Hello, Joe. Micah Larkin. Hi, y'all. Mike and Larkin from West Hartford here. And Steve Chesson says, oh, geez, sending the comment, brought it back. Oh, Steve's been having echo. He's been hearing echo. I'm not sure if that's real. No, I'm just messing with you. Yeah, I don't know what's going on because I actually went out and bought sound pads for this office. So I have sound pads on the wall, and I've done many tests, and I'm not able to replicate that echo. So my sincere apologies. I don't know what else to do. Jeff Daniel, I'm waiting for Michigan to lock down Zoom meetings. Our governor is really cautious. Yeah, some crazy stuff that's happening out there, man. We've been locked down here since March 16th. Other than supermarket runs and a few outdoor dining ventures, that's it. So we're hunkering down for the winter here. Victoria Ganaway, good evening. Welcome to the show. Have you been on here before? I don't remember. But welcome nonetheless. So yeah, so you have one hell of a history, man. I mean, we have some mutual contacts. We recently connected, you and I, through LinkedIn, through the Pitch House Roundtable.
Yes.
But in our short conversation, I mean, it's almost like we went to different schools together because there's a handful of people that we both know that we're both connected to, but separately. So the logistics thing, I'm always amazed with the sheer volume of cars. When you see the number of cars sitting at a port, when you see the number of cars on dealership lots, when you look at some of the larger dealers that are doing 3,000 ROs a month, and now a global pandemic hits and everybody's freaking out. It's like, well, how are we going to go from point A to point B? How are we going to get our cars? How are we going to serve our customers? Because a lot of the customers are freaked out. They don't want to come in. So I'm hoping that you can shed some light on that for us today. Maybe starting, I don't know, home delivery. Is that a good place to start?
Yeah, might as well. As good as any, right? Because if you watch any TV and there's any commercial, somebody's contactless or touchless or delivering something somewhere now these days. And you know what? We're doing it with automobiles. And, we all know Carvana and we all see the model that they've built. Some will argue that their business model is flawed because they're losing money. But the reality is the consumer's driving the behavior, and they've been able to capture the genie in the bottle and put a business model together that allows a vehicle to show up essentially on your doorstep, very similar to Amazon, right? So we've all now been conditioned to click, 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 and then a day later and sometimes sooner, a box shows up on your doorstep, and it was the thing that you ordered last night. Sometimes it was a good order, and sometimes you're like, why the heck did I order that? Or the wife has 12 boxes that show up and you're like, oh, what's all this? So we're conditioned to this now, right? We expect as consumers this I don't have to go. And listen, let's be honest. I've been in the car business, as I just kind of rattled off, since 1989 up until now, either a dealer or a vendor. And I kind of know the business, and this isn't something that we really want to do because it's it takes extra work, right? And it's another thing. And if you're a dealer today, there's a lot of things you need to do. And they're all working on shorter staffs. Everybody kind of, COVID came, furloughs came, businesses contracted, so on and so forth. So here we are, a business, and we're a little over 4 years, almost 5 years old of a business. So we had built out this model of moving vehicles and people and packages with logistics, because we were trying to solve a problem for digital retailing, and that's getting the car to the driveway of the consumer, and then the pickup and delivery for service. Well, it was really successful in box trucks, fleet, and rental cars, because the path from A to B is pretty linear, right? And the skill set of that individual just needs to be, hey, I've got a good license and I don't get in accidents and I show up for work, right? The contractor Uber model. We built it. We're very close friends with Uber, and we built our modeling of driver networks around what they've done, because we're like, we don't need to reinvent this wheel. That wheel's invented for that gig worker, right? The wheel's not invented to take a $350,000 AMG Mercedes-Benz to a doctor in the hills of Los Angeles with an Uber driver. So some of that pieces of those puzzles had to be worked out and still are being worked out. But my point is, I can take anybody dressed any way and get them in a box truck, a Penske or a Ryder truck, and have them drive it a state over 10 miles, 100 miles. It didn't matter. That was fairly simple, but we started to figure out, if I chained those drives together, I can become way more efficient. So we started to build AI to go, how many of these one-to-one direction moves can I connect together? So I go to A to B to C to D to E to F to G. So that same driver just keeps going all day long, and they're not doing this back and forth with a chase driver wasting resources. And we've tied this all together in just in a really amazing logistics AI-driven platform with a pool of drivers all over the country.
Let's see, we got Joe Brawler just tuned in. Says, good evening, everyone. How are you, Joe? Welcome. You know, it's I love data. You know, I love data, and the AI that analyzes that data and builds models and projections and all that stuff. I just find that so incredibly fascinating, because there's so much waste in movement, and all that costs money. And I would imagine that with the fleet and the rental stuff, there's probably some more flexibility than the individual, runs at a dealer when you, as you said, you're dropping off that 500 SD or SL. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, exactly. But in your time windows are different too, right? I just need to move 100 box trucks from lot A to B to C to D, and as long as it's done by the end of the day, right? Whereas a service pickup and delivery, I need to be there around, between 8 and 8:30, because the customer is going to be waiting there to hand you the keys, and you got to sign the paperwork to trade the loaner car.
You cannot be late.
You can't be late. You can be early sometimes, but even early is bad in this business, because if the customer's not there, now I have a driver standing around waiting for that customer because they're early, right? And they have to finish that task before they can go to the next one. So that time window is pretty important. And you can't do it without the logistics, because now you're just relying on a bunch of people at your dealership that are really busy doing a whole bunch of other things to go, hey, I need to make sure that Paul is in that car at 8:30 and he can make it through traffic and be there by 9:15, right? Are you going to do the math and look at your Google map and figure out how long it's going to take the driver to get from here to here and exchange keys and do the math? That takes 15 minutes. And now guess what? We need to do COVID safety. So I got to wipe all the surfaces down, the knobs and handles in the vehicle. That's another 15 minutes, right? So I got 30 minutes of keys and COVID safety through traffic. When am I going to show up there? And try to do it by hand. Our software does all the math. It says it's going to take you this long. We know the traffic patterns. We know how long it's going to take. We know and we measure it, and just, it helps the dealer. And it's not just, when I say dealer, our customer, it could be a fleet company or other companies. It helps them simply go, I need to move this thing from here to here. I got to go on and do the next thing I have to do. Then they're done.
Now we got Justin Searle just tuned in from Think Ad Group. Welcome, Justin.
Justin.
Hey, everyone. Glad to be here. And Jeff Daniels has a question. He says, where do you gather the data for the next hot point to work?
The next hot point. Explain hot point.
Yeah, what do you mean by that, Jeff?
Does he mean origination of the next move?
I don't know.
So I can answer it on that assumption, and maybe when he types back, it might be different.
State to state and city to city.
Okay, so basically what happens if you think of all the movements, and we call them movements, and each one is a leg or a node of a trip. So I've got to move, let's say 25 vehicles today. Some of them are going from my store to my sister's stores. Some are coming from auctions. Some are home deliveries. Some of them are remote test drives. And so you have this mixture of all this vehicle movement going on. Well, so does the other guy down the road. So does the other guy down the road. So does the other guy down the road. So if you take all of those and you lay them down on a map, and you say, this guy's going from point A to point B, but there's another vehicle coming from their point A to point B, which is right near that next one, you can start to link those together. Thus, what you'll do is eliminate chase vehicles. Chase vehicles cost twice the money because you got two people using a separate car, burning gas, and so on and so forth. So if you can eliminate a chase and connect all these together based on density of where things terminate and originate, that's how you gain the efficiencies.
So essentially layered maps where the intersecting points is where you connect them.
That's correct. And you take a layered map and you go, show me all the available. I have to move something from here to here. Yeah. Show me all the available drivers on a map right now that have their app on that I can connect to the fastest if I need a job done fast. And then when they terminate, where is the next job that's originating that's closest to where that one's terminating? And sometimes, many times, it's the same exact spot. From dealer, you'd be amazed from dealer to dealer how manager A doesn't communicate with manager B, and they both send a guy with a chase car over to their separate stores. So now they've got 4 people going back and forth with 2 chase cars when it could have been one driver picking up the car at the other destination and retrieving it. Massive inefficiencies.
Jeff says tracking busy dealers and products based on volume and product sales. This question.
Say that one again.
He says tracking busy dealers and products based on volume and product sales.
I mean, I don't think that's really part of what, we're not tracking their sales. The volume that we care about is your volume of movement, right? So are you doing home delivery, and how many of those do you need to do per week, per day, per hour? And are you doing service pickup and delivery? So obviously, right, the stores that sell more service more, so their volume of moves are exponentially more than the rural dealer that we have that aren't selling that many cars. They might use this twice a month versus 40 times a day.
Well, the beauty of this is that there is a lot of volume, but everything is on a schedule, right? Nobody gets up and says, hey, I need to move 30 cars in an hour or 20.
You would hope.
Right. Well, I'm sure those situations.
it happens, but typically you're right. Most people know I got this many service appointments tomorrow. I'm going to hand out X number of loaner cars. Therefore, I'm going to need 9 drivers between 7:30 in the morning and 10 o'clock in the morning. Right. And then 3 o'clock comes and those cars start to get completed. And now we need to return those cars and pick up the loaner cars. So now you have another density of movement that you have to do. The beautiful thing, though, if you think about what we're doing, is some days I need 15 drivers and some days I need 0. Some days I need 2 and some days I need 20. With a platform like this, we're only going to supply the exact amount of drivers that you need, and we're always going to try to reduce it to the lowest number with the least amount of back and forth. Therefore, the efficiencies grow, and the dealerships, hey, our product needs to be sticky. So if we don't create efficiencies for what you're already doing, then you don't need us.
So does the dealership have a dashboard that they log into?
Absolutely.
Do you pull data from them, from automated scheduling? How does that whole interaction piece of it come together?
Yeah, all of the above. So pulling inventory, appointments, loaner car availability, all of that data comes into our platform, and basically we'll digest it. They let the AI figure out what's the best trip route, what's the best trip plan. How do I make this day of whether it's picking up parts on Hot Shots or swapping inventory with my sister store or maybe another like dealership, and it mixes it all together and basically delivers a plan on a dashboard for either a dispatcher, they can move them around, or you could just let the system do it by itself, and it will figure it out for you. Whereas taking most of the time that humans spend on doing this and let them go back and do what they're best at, and typically it's either fixing or selling the vehicles.
Wow, that sounds almost like automated dispatch in the service department.
It's very, very similar, right? Again, if you look at your Pez dispenser of ROs and who gets what job and when it needs to be done by, and you're estimating the amount of time it's going to take to drop that oil pan and change the oil or seal or whatever you need to do, it's very similar because you're estimating how long it's going to take for that driver to show up, COVID clean the car, take the photographs to make sure that I record any damage before I get in it, record the mileage, go drop it off, do the same COVID clean, get out, take pictures again, and then exchange keys with somebody. How long is that going to take at this time of the day in this type of traffic, so that I know I can beat or meet my thresholds of time windows that I have to meet? And when you start layering thousands and thousands of those on top of each other, it gets pretty complex.
Yeah, I would say, because a dealership has a huge need. I mean, between moving cars, if you're working with a group, let's say, the one of the great things about the group is that they're able to move vehicles based on market, right? So if, let's say, you've got 10 stores and you're taking a car in on trade that does historically better in one of your other markets, where now you can put more money on that car if you need to make that deal. And at the same token, you can move the cars around to what's hot. So you've got that going on. You've got service, drop off and pickup going on. You've got scheduled test drives. So on the scheduled test drive piece of it, that's usually a shorter time span, I'm thinking, because that's a lot of times more of an impulse. Hey, you know what? I've got some time. Can you bring me the car? So do you typically work a package, let's say, for a store to do all of their logistics, or is it a la carte? How does that look?
So it's 100% a la carte, and that's why we believe we're extremely successful today, is because you're only going to pay. I feel like a Liberty Mutual commercial, but you're only going to pay for what you use, right? It's funny. So I dressed up as that guy for Halloween, but you're only going to pay for what you use, which is, I need to pay for one because I need to move one car today, and tomorrow I need 10. So I'm going to pay for those 10. And it's interesting because we all talk about the expansion of your business. How do I grow? How do I grow? I need to hire more people. Well, we came into a time that's happened before, but we never saw one that happened really this quickly, which was a contraction, right? Because many dealers had to close their doors. They couldn't even open for business, or they had to keep their showrooms closed. They couldn't let them come in. There's a lot of different things that happened. So people started to lay off these porters. They were like the first ones that went. They're drivers. They were the first guys to go. And, with a company like ours, we have a dealership that had to lay off all 6 of their drivers. They furloughed all of them. They're a Highline store, 5 Highline franchises, and most of their business was service and pickup loaner cars. And they were able to get right back in business right in the heat of COVID in March by jumping on our platform. We actually took 2 of those drivers. We recruited them onto our platform, so they became Draiver drivers. And it works out great because you don't get stuck with this personnel burden of, I have these 5 or 6 drivers and I need to keep them busy. And we're typically pretty kind-hearted people, and we don't want to let people go or lay them off if we don't have to. So we make busy work for these people. Go do this, go do that, just because we need to keep them busy, because there are the days where we don't need to move the volume to our peak capacity, because you always need to scale your employee staff to your maximum capacity, or you'll never be able to fill it. And in many days, you're only far less than max, and there's a lot of waste.
It's so interesting. I've been in this business a little over 40 years, and just the sheer amount of change that's happened over the years, and how we're doing business today compared to how we used to do business. This year, the whole notion of doing more with less. I mean, I've never seen it to this degree in my lifetime.
It's really, really interesting. For if people work at that, they can do it, right? And we kind of did it when we had, cash for clunkers. Everybody kind of scaled down. There was a lot of fat cats sitting around. There was a lot of dead weight in your showroom and in your infrastructure. And even, I was working for Elite at the time, and there was, I wasn't quite there at Elite. I was at Sonic coming to Elite, but there was a lot of fat that you found, and you found it pretty quickly because it's obvious, right? And our whole business model with Draiver is to supply a workforce that's on demand, that can do just as good of a job, if not better, than the person that you have there full time. And you can incrementally grow, but if you need to, you can incrementally contract without any pain points of going to HR and having to come to Paul and say, hey man, I got to let you go. And the other thing, I just want to continue on that. In markets, let's say I slow down and I have a couple of other competitors. Well, as a driver, I might do 5 jobs for you, but I'm going to go do 3 jobs for the other dealer, and I'm going to go do 2 jobs for the other guy across town on my way home. So as a driver, my flexibility of being able to work when I want to work, as much as I want to work, right? Because I'm an independent contractor, and I can make more money because I'm not just restricted to the amount of work that one dealership can give me. I'm unlimited in the amount of work that I can do by picking up these gig jobs.
So are these independent contractors that work for you, or are they salaried employees? How does that work?
Nope, they're independent contractors. So again, it's the Uber model, right? And many of these drivers are Uber, Lyft, DoorDash. So they might drive some people to the airport in the morning, depending on where they live. And then in the middle of the day, it's typically slower for Uber and Lyft drivers. And they'll go move 3 or 4 trucks or some cars back and forth. And then in the evening, they'll flip their DoorDash app on and go deliver some hamburgers. So, they're very resourceful people. In this economy, we're supplying a job or a way to gain income when there's, as we see the unemployment numbers flash up on the screen every other Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever it comes out, these people are able to go to work, and they're telling us that I feel a little bit more comfortable delivering something or being in an empty vehicle just by myself, driving it, across the state, than every 20 minutes or 15 minutes having strangers jump in my backseat.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it was very interesting the way the business has evolved, the way things have changed. We got a couple of comments to get caught up on here. Ron Usher says, getting my drone license after I retire. See, Ron's been threatening to retire. I don't think it's going to happen myself, but he keeps threatening he's going to retire. And he says, guess I got to get a bigger drone to move all these cars. And Steve Epicella, welcome, Steve. Steve says, when a customer's impression of the dealer is shaped / impacted by a driver that doesn't work for the dealer, how do you set and maintain driver standards so that the dealer is represented beyond the customer's expectations, or is delivering the vehicle the only threshold? That's a very, very good question. How do you maintain?
It is. So there's several different ways that the progressive dealers are managing this. Some of them will keep a staff of 2 or 3 of their own employees for specifically highline customers, very detailed delivery type customers, and they use our app. So what we did is we built our app so that your employee or our contract drivers are all using the same app. So to us, it's a moving something from here to here, but still gives the dealership and the business the oversight, management, and efficiencies of using the AI platform. And we have, listen, I've got many clients that they're all their own drivers that were extremely inefficient. I have a pretty good sized dealership group that had many drivers, and now they're all on the platform, and they're able to maximize their efficiencies of their own drivers with the platform. So it's not just, the marketplace, it's the marketplace plus the logistics platform. So you can hybrid this thing, but we have many customers that will do creative things like, hey, I have Anthony, he's our driver, he's going to drop your car off. He's going to have you sign a couple of pieces of paper at 6:30 tonight. Can you jump on a FaceTime with me or a Zoom meeting, hopefully a FaceTime, and I'm going to walk you through your car. I'm going to do a virtual delivery. I'm going to show you how to set your radio. I'm going to show you where all the things are in your car, and we're going to do a FaceTime, and the salesperson does that while they're either at home or if they're in their showroom. So they connect that personal delivery touch, and the driver just becomes a facilitator, just like the Carvana driver that takes that truck off the flatbed. They don't walk through the whole car presentation. They drop it off, and then they have some other communication, most of it done digitally through their channels. So
I imagine then that I know there are apps that work this way. So the AI knows, based on traffic patterns, based on a lot of data, that this particular run from A to B should take X amount of time.
Yes.
So the driver's efficiencies, and if there are things that come up, I would imagine that data is then worked into your model so that you can more accurately project what the arrival times are going to be or how much time that particular job is going to take. So you're always assessing and fine-tuning what it is that you're doing to ultimately end up with the perfect machine. And that may never happen because it's always evolving. So from a drop-off standpoint, if we know that run should take 23 minutes and the driver gets it there in 23 minutes, and now we have another interface between the customer and the personnel at the dealership that's going to FaceTime with them, walking them through the technologies, to Steve's point, and it's a great question because as a dealer, I'd want to know. Mm-hmm. It seems to me like you'd have both of those areas covered to the best of everyone's ability.
It's several layers even deeper than that. So yes, we track every little data of efficiency that we can. If a driver goes off route, you're alerted. It's like, why is he going north when he should be going south, right? If there's a flat tire and there's 3 different legs in the trip chain, and there's a flat tire, well, there's two other legs that aren't going to get filled. So our system will start to replan, like, I need to fill those other two legs. So it will automatically start trying to find who's the next driver that I can replace that with, because that job still needs to get done. If it can't get done, then we have to start communicating back to whoever planned it to say, hey, we have a problem. And we have, SOS rescue for drivers. So if something happens, they'll, an Uber driver will show up and rescue that guy from the side of the road. And then we have deals with wrecker and tow companies that can go rescue the car. But all of these things, happen thousands and thousands of times a day. And our AI gets smarter every time that there's a monkey wrench, right? And it continues to get smart, and it figures out faster than we can figure out what the best plan B, C, D, E is all the time. I mean, it can smoke us from trying to say, here's the best way to do it, because it's already thinking about it as it plans.
I'm such a fan of the technology, and I always say that, as humans, we don't know what we don't know, but the computer knows what it doesn't know because it learns it.
That's what AI is, right? It keeps it has to machinate thousands of different options of what's the best way. And it's not always perfect. Like you said, it keeps learning, keeps changing. But, we've got one of the first trip insurance plans that we know of. And what we were able to do is, because we know the driver, we know their history, we know how many times they've driven for us recently, we know the route that they're going on, and we know the vehicle that they're going to be in. We can get a per trip insurance rate. So we cover the insurance every time one of our marketplace driver gets in that vehicle. We cover the first 100K on the car. We cover $1 million of liability around that trip. But we can do it incrementally, because the actuaries of the insurance company, we're telling them exactly what your risk is on every single trip because of all the data that we have in that trip.
Driving styles in relation to traffic, are they
the vehicle they're in? Have you ever, you might have a CDL license, but have you ever driven a 30-foot box truck? Right? And if this is your first time, well, guess what? The risk factor goes up. We pay a little bit more on that trip premium.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm a huge fan of AI and data. Chris Lynn, sister, welcome. She is one of my local peeps, where we bring a couple of our vehicles to get serviced. They do service the old-fashioned way. Honest, upfront, quick, personable. And I have in my the handwritten note that I got the first time I ever went there. And in my 40 plus years in the business, I don't remember getting a handwritten note from anybody.
That's awesome.
Jeff Daniels, that's what I was after. Talent pool, and where were you finding them? So where do you?
Well, that's a little bit of our secret sauce, but we have some really cool recruitment techniques that we use. We use social media platforms, obviously, and we have a person that heads up the driver recruitment and training and risk, and we have a whole risk team, obviously, because we're moving thousands and thousands of vehicles that aren't ours. And we take that pool and even though it's a little bit of a secret, they're gig workers, they're gig drivers, they're doing Uber, they're doing Lyft, they're doing DoorDash, they're making money through putting an app on their phone, and they get an alert that says, here's this type of job, do you want to take it, yes or no? Whether it's delivering a pizza and a hamburger or driving a truck across the state to make $400. I mean, it's a gig.
Yeah, no, that's a great business model. Every business, even my business, has adapted to how we do business, and it's just getting better by the day. So Steve says, does a customer have the ability to survey their driver and delivery experience so you can audit the driver value? If so, then like Uber, is that rating available to the dealer so they can control their customer experience?
So kind of. So right now our rating is done by the dealer, which is our client, not necessarily the end user, which is the customer in many cases.
Your client.
We're talking about retail automotive. So we deliver a lot of vehicles to upfitters and people that are buying trucks. So we'll bring a bunch of cab and chassis. So that experience is a little bit different when we say delivery, because it really is. It's a new vehicle delivery, but it's not to the consumer's home. It's to a big lot where they're going to put a bunch of dump bodies on these trucks. So right now the dealer, our client, has the ability to score and rate the drivers, and you can see if you come onto our system, you can look in your market and see all the drivers, and you can see how many times they've driven. You can see their rating, you can see their scoring, you can see their driver efficiencies, because you're right. I know that job should take 35 minutes and they're averaging 39. And we have some that might average less, but that's not always the best thing, because are you speeding, right? So we start to look at, why can that person be, 120% efficient every time? Is it because they're speeding to do it?
Right, because that doesn't help anybody, because that just increases. I remember when I got my company car, the last big company I worked for, they put you through a training course.
Mm-hmm.
And, you don't think much of it at the time, but very basic things like 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, how that impacts you. So yeah, you can affect change or improve anything that you can measure.
Absolutely. And so here's the best thing, right? Ask any dealer, how much does it cost you to move a vehicle? What's your per mileage cost to move a vehicle? And no one will be able to answer that unless they're on the Draiver platform, because you'll pull up a report. But we measure everything in this business. We measure everything. We measure RO, we measure effective labor rates, we measure lead response time, we measure closing ratios, we measure every single thing. I mean, we measure our digital marketing down to the micro nth degree of impression, clicks to conversions. But guess what we don't measure? What we're talking about today. Nobody can tell me how much it costs to move their vehicles, and why would you just let this be your business? It could be overhead, it could be a way to gain revenue, but why not measure it like you measure everything else? Because guess what happens when you measure stuff? You get efficient, right? You realize that you've got a bunch of waste in there, and waste is money. And if you can become more efficient, then your bottom line starts to grow. And then on top of it, I'm offering new things that I've never offered before to help my business grow and move into the new, I don't even know what the word is, but it's different of how we sell cars today.
Well, what's really great about what I love about that is that you have the opportunity to educate a dealer on an area of their business where, as you said earlier, we are in a mode where we're doing more with less, right? Mm-hmm. We've realized that, we live in a world of extremes. We either have too many people or too few people, but it sounds like with the advent of technology, we're able to fine tune that to better predict what we're going to need. And while the dealer is now a little bit more interested in cutting their costs, i.e. all these programs they're dropping that they were paying for that they didn't even know they had half the time. When you go into a dealer and you can say to them, okay, so based on our studies of real world data, what we're seeing is it's costing you as a store X amount of dollars to move this type of vehicle, X amount of dollars to do this service, X amount of dollars to do that service. And we break it down to the per mile charge. And now you can show them with, again, real data, mm-hmm. how we improve that for you. And while we're doing that, this is what we're looking at. We're not a today only business, right?
That's right.
What are we going to do? Where are we going to end up at the end of 12 months from the beginning of the year? So when we look at all the numbers and we're able to improve them, that way, and you can show real tangible savings. That's great.
And it's because you can. Here's the challenge. What am I comparing it to? Because there's nothing measuring it today. So you kind of have to rough your way into it, right? How much is your porter, your taxes, your insurance, how many hours do they work? What cars are they using? And then, but you start asking the harder questions like, how many deadhead trips do you do in the course of a month? And they start scratching their head because they don't know, right? They don't know how many times they sent a chase vehicle out when they didn't have to, right? How many times did you waste 2 employees 3 or 4 hours of their time and, put an extra 50 or 60 miles on one of your used cars for no reason whatsoever, because there was already something that driver could have brought back here, right? So the efficiencies are there. Sometimes it's hard to prove it because I don't have anything to compare it to because it's not being measured. Does that make sense?
Right. No, it does make sense. But you know what the tangible costs are for all the items that add up.
That's right. That's right. And you just got to rough into it. You just got to do some fuzzy math. But we've got a cool little widget worksheet that we plug in the numbers, and almost every time it's going to work out that we can become more efficient. And the reality is, even if we're the same money as what you're doing today, we're still less money because of all the human capital that we're taking away from the time that humans are doing this manually to automating it. So how much more efficient are they becoming because they're not sitting there trying to track a driver down, texting them a message going, where the heck is the guy? He's been gone for 3 hours and it was 20 minutes down the road. So what's up?
My dear friend Chris, I'm not going to use his last name, but dear friend Chris, he was our lot manager. Okay. And one of the fondest memories I have of Chris, I was working at a Lexus store, sent Chris on an errand. Chris was gone, just gone, hours. So I call him up. Hey, Chris, where are you? I'm at the light. All right. So I hang up the phone. I think he's going to be here in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
2 hours later, Chris, where the hell are you, man? I'm at the light. At the light where? In Vermont? We're in Connecticut. Come on. So yeah, that type of stuff is awesome. We've got a couple more comments coming in here. Let's see. Steve Apicella does a custom. Oh no, we did that one just now. Mike Castaneda. So the dealer works through you and you manage the drivers throughout the day? Question mark.
That's correct. Yes. With the dealers are our customers. We supply the logistics to plan all of their trips or vehicle movements, or we do people and packages as well. And the drivers, again, very similar to an Uber, they'll have their phone and their app on, and it will ding and say, hey, there's a trip available. You're going to move. You need to go show up at Anthony's house, pick up his car, bring it in for service, or dealership and grab a loaner car and then bring him the loaner car, pick up his service car and come back. It's going to pay $62 or $39. Do you want it? Yes or no? They click yes. And if they're in our platform, they have to be certified and they have to be, they have to have all their credentials, because we're sticklers, because we're insuring the trip. So all of our drivers need to have all of their paperwork in order, and they have to have good driving records, and they have to be good performers, because we don't want just any random people driving these vehicles around because it's on our insurance. So yes, we go through background checks. It's not just sign up, right? You can't go and click a couple of buttons and become a driver for Draiver in an hour. We have to go through a pretty stringent background process. Yes. And then training and validation. Like, do you have the right phone? Does your camera work properly to take the photographs? If you're a CDL driver, we need some credentials around that, because we're not just going to let you go jump in a 30-foot truck and try to back it up in between. These things are in pretty tight. And when you park them, you only got a foot on each side. So you need to know how to drive them, or you're going to smash them.
Yeah. And that's all very expensive stuff.
Yes.
Now, I forgot to add in on your previous point about estimating what the per mile cost is. what it was before and what it is with you. So I think you could get pretty darn close to a number of what the dealer's really paying when you have all the data that you plug in. It's probably a very
we
simple.
can get pretty close. You know what? They get pretty mad because they don't know, and we show them what they're spending, and
Right.
they're like, what?
Yeah,
Because it's just not something that's being measured. And once you start to measure it, you realize that there's a real cost there. It's not free. The vehicles don't move themselves for free, not yet. I think Tesla probably will be the first ones that figure that out, where you say, hey, I need to send this car to my sister lot, and you tell your phone and the car drives away, but we're obviously not there yet, or even close. But so, yeah, there's a cost to it. There's a cost to everything. And if you don't measure it, you're not going to get efficient. And if you do measure it, it doesn't guarantee you're going to be efficient, but at least you know where you're not being efficient.
Dealer, it just goes so much beyond that, because if you have to have somebody on a payroll for 8 hours, but yet you have 6 hours worth of transportation needs, that's a savings in itself. And God
That's
forbid,
right.
a dealer employee has a slip and fall, you have a couple of surgeries, you're looking at,
Now,
80 grand.
And not only that, now what do you do? How do you fill those tasks, right? Because they still need to get done. You can't stop doing business.
Yeah.
So now you're trying to text somebody. Do you know anybody who can drive a car? And then you're just throwing random people, right? Who's insuring that person? You are now the dealer. So you're taking on all this risk to have somebody drive your car, and you really have no protections, because are you checking their license? Are you doing background checks? No, because you just need to move the car. You're very reactionary, and it's unplanned, and it's anytime something's unplanned and ad hoc, you'll never get efficiencies out of it. If you only can do it if you're lucky. So, it's not just everything that we bring, but listen, we know the business, we understand what goes on in a dealership, because I've been doing it for so long. So I get it. And we're able to deliver software to our customers that just make their life easier, and do things that they need to do, but not necessarily may not want to do. But because COVID's here, they're almost forced into this corner of, how do I do a home delivery? How do I manage this remote test drive thing? And I guess I need to get in the service pickup and delivery business if I want to stay competitive or reach deeper into my markets.
And we all know that these changes don't come without kicking and screaming a lot of times.
And they don't, but listen, I'm very process oriented, and anybody who knows me laughed when I said that, right? You can't just willy-nilly do this. And I see it all the time. It's actually how some of our sales guys, I trained them to prospect, because it said, we do home delivery, we're COVID touchless, contactless home delivery, and it's all over their website, and they're and then you mystery shop them. You say, hey, can I have a remote test drive this afternoon around 3:00? And they don't know what you're talking about. Exactly. What do you mean? Well, I can set an appointment and you can come down. Well, I'm an hour away. I don't want to go. No. And they don't have a process. So, I talk about it. If you're going to do it, what's your process? Are your salespeople trained? They even know that you do this? How about your BDC people? Do your templates back it up in the BDC? And then when it comes time to execute it, how do you execute it? Are you keeping track of when the cars are out for a test drive? What if your floor plan auditor shows up and you've handed out 10 cars and you're not monitoring where those vehicles are, and now you're the GSM running around going, hey, where's stock number 14392? And the sales guy who flipped it out to a customer for an overnight test drive is off that day. There's so many things that has changed in our business that we need to be mindful of. Here's another one. This was a problem that we solved for a dealer that brought it to us. They said, I don't know these people. They've never been in my showroom, and they're asking me to take them a $300,000 AMG, and I'm dropping them off the keys. I have no idea who they are. That makes me nervous. And I said, well, I get it. It would make me nervous too. So we now have the ability to send a link to your phone. You scan your license. Once you scan the license, it checks the license for validity. You look at the phone, it scans your face, and you have to open your mouth so you're not just holding up a picture. It knows it's a real human there, and it compares your face to the license before I hand those keys over to that person, because now I've taken some of that risk and mitigated it for 50 cents. That's how much it cost me to do that, 50 cents. I charge the dealer $1, so I mark it up 100%. So, but still, is that not worth $1? Is that not worth $1? I
It's
mean,
worth
all day long, right? And we have clients now that are using that in their showroom to do test drives, because it's one of those things that happened because of a request. We figured it out. And now it's a contactless test drive in the showroom, because normally what the dealer says is, give me your license. So I take it out, I hand it to you. You walk away for 5 minutes, you stick it in a scanner, or you take a photocopy of it and stick it aside. Now I just say, what's your phone number? The person gets a text. They open their license, put it on the desk in front of you. They take it, they look in the camera. It comes back with a thumbs up and a green light. And the salesperson goes, come on, let's go for a test drive. So, these are things that happen by circumstance of things changing, and how quickly can you adapt to make it work so it solves the problem.
I just love it. Mike Castaneda has another question. He says, are you available throughout the country or certain areas?
Yeah, so 59 cities right now, primarily major metros. We have about 12 markets that are suburban type markets. It takes us, if we came into a market, this is, I say this all the time, it's a chicken and egg game. I don't need to recruit a bunch of drivers into a market that I don't have customers moving vehicles. And if I have customers in markets moving vehicles, then I need to have enough drivers, not too many, but not too little, right? So it's a very chicken and egg game, but I can open a market in about 7 to 14 days, just depending on the density of gig workers, right? So if you got Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, if it's pretty prevalent in your market, I can flag a team of 20 drivers really, really fast. If you're in a market where it's almost impossible to get an Uber, it's a little bit more challenging for us. But if you look at our map, it's very dense around Atlanta and Boston, New York, and Chicago, Minnesota, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, all California coast, and Texas, and where you would think.
Now, is that on your website as well, those areas?
It's so that heat map's not, but actually that's a good idea. I might put that on our website. It's probably not a bad idea.
If you could.
But a quick demo, I can show anybody where, the density. I actually have a little tool where I can just go in, put in your zip code, it'll tell me exactly how many drivers are there, if they're active, if they've been certified, and their certifications are expired. So just, it takes me 3 seconds to tell you if I got drivers.
Data. Love data, man.
It's all data, man.
Hey, can you put your contact info and website links and stuff like that in the comments also?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sure we covered so much ground today. I really appreciate this. I hope this gave everybody a little bit better understanding of the logistics around the car dealership and all of the areas where we need to move vehicles and people. So this was great. I thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
You're so welcome. It was enjoyable.
Mike said, that's the reason I asked. I just checked the website. This was some good stuff. He says, thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. We do our best to bring on interesting topics every week. Always something a little bit different. Sometimes we have one person. Sometimes we have a team of people. Really depends on, who's available at a particular time. I'm trying to cover all of the things that I don't see other people cover. I don't believe in beating a horse to death and then continue to beat him, but I do want to try to bring good, relevant information to our audience, because look, I spend probably way too many hours looking at stuff online. I live on LinkedIn. It's such a great resource that, so if I can do my part to bring information like this that's valuable to my audience and my community, then then why not? It's a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anthony, thank you again. I really appreciate you sharing. And to the
Thanks for
audience,
having me, man. It was good. Great questions. Audience had awesome questions, and I'll get my contact information out there. And anybody who wants some more information, obviously we'll get it to them.
awesome. I'm going to play one on our way out, and then after the clip, we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live. Thanks again.
See you guys.
Hello, I'm Ed Roberts, Fixed Operations Director here at Ozark Ford Lincoln. How many times a day do you have someone asking you if you have a minute? When it's my staff, I have all the time in the world. Unfortunately, most of the time, it's a vendor telling me they have the silver bullet and they want a minute of my time to sell it to me. We all know they're going to take up a lot more than a minute. They're going to take up 30 to 45 minutes and put a hard sell on me trying to sell their product, whether it really benefits my business or not. I would like for them to do research on my business and truly bring something to me of value, but more times than not, they're just looking for a close. I was speaking with my friend Paul Meyer, and he told me about DealerVendorMatch.com. On DealerVendorMatch.com, there is a plethora of vendors from the front side of the business to the back side of the business and everything in between. Now you can find vendors on your terms, find what works for you, and then set up an appointment for them to come out and put together a presentation that is fitting to your business.